Here, I have something for you. You're welcome. I picked it up on one of our latest planetary expeditions. I'm more than just an extra gun, you know. I'm just pleased I get to utilize some of my old field collecting skills. It's been a while. Check back with me from time to time after we return from our planetary jaunts. If I pick anything up, it's all yours. Stumble across at this type of settlement as a museum. Might be worth a look.
I'm learning so much here. Everyone should visit at least once in their life.
Welcome to... We take vandalism seriously here. You do not mess with history.
Hi there. Always. We used to get more tourists than we do these days.
Boy, am I glad they have a Chunks here.
Welcome to Chunks. Please choose your chunks.
We're out of Chunk special sauce again. But trust me, the food's still great without it. Hello there. Welcome to the new Homestead Chunks. We've got all your Chunks favorites. Well, almost all of them. Sadly, we're out of the special sauce. I know. But everything else is still that great Chunks food you know and love. So, what can I do for you? Oh, you had to go and ask the hard questions, huh? How can I pick just one? There's chicken chunks, beef chunks, potato chunks, cheesesteak chunks, cheesecake chunks. You know what? I'm gonna cheat, if you don't mind, and just say, I love them all equally. You know I do. And what's not to love? It's delicious, nutritious, easy, fast, inexpensive. And it sure makes my hungry belly sing for joy. Here. My wife thinks I eat too much Chunks food, but I just can't help myself. It's so good. Well, people gotta eat, you know? But seriously, I think we're just starting to get with the times a little. And I can't think of a better restaurant than Chunks to usher that in. I think corporate just saw New Homestead as an untapped market. And the locals may not eat it, but the tourists love having a taste of home. If I'm completely honest, it is. And people are always saying how this Chunks can't compare to the real deal. And I just know it's because we never had that mouth-watering sauce. I've been in contact with some of the other restaurants out there, and they'll give me some, but they say they can't afford to send it, and I don't have a ship, so what am I to do? For real, good question. They haven't said, but I think it has something to do with them prioritizing other chunks over mine. I guess it's made at a different facility than our other food, and they don't even want to pay the shipping cost to ship from another store to ours. Yeah, sometimes I get lucky and a cargo hauler passes through with a route that takes them near other chunks and back again, but there's no guarantee. You bet it is. You may not hear people talk about it, but trust me, it's the secret ingredient. It's like the glue that holds it all together. I mean, not literally. I'm not saying it's glue or that our food falls apart. It's delightful. Tangy, savory, it's a little sweet, but not too sweet. And I've noticed that once people find out we don't have it, sometimes they don't return. It's the reason business isn't as good as other chunks. Wait, for real? You do that? You're not pulling my leg? Oh, yeah, right. I actually just got a message back from another Chunks before you got here, and they got a case ready to go for me. Just tell them you're there to pick it up for me, and it should be good to go. Thanks.
Thanks for choosing Chunks. Which chunks would you like today?
Hello there. Are you here to peruse our little museum exhibit? I could see how that might not be clear, given that it's displayed in the main concourse here. But if you take a look, you'll notice our collection of rare Earth antiquities salvaged from before the collapse. It's quite the unique glimpse into our past. If you have any questions about the exhibit or New Homestead, I'm happy to answer as best as I can. It's an interesting story. New Homestead began as a scientific research base called the Titan Astrobase, back when space travel was in its infancy. The hope was that humanity would be able to discover simple alien life here given the moon's composition and water supply. When that ultimately failed, it was repurposed as a colony research base where scientists and engineers studied how to build colonies on inhospitable worlds. Then, finally, when gravity drives were commonplace and we started finding Earth-like planets, New Homestead was born as a living history community to preserve that past. When our early colonists learned of Earth's demise, they decided to take on the names of their cities of origin as a way to remember their heritage. Now, some may have been lost in translation over the years, and some may have taken it more seriously than others, but the names are mostly accurate. For instance, my family comes from the city of Lyon, in a country that was called France. I am Maurice Lyon, and I am the community elder. As the oldest living citizen at 96, my only job is to keep Earth history alive. I tell stories to the young people and the visitors from other worlds. Although my memory isn't what it used to be, I try my best to get the stories right. Sure, I'd love to. There was once a war, so big that they say all of the world was involved. This was actually the second time it happened. They fought because a terrible man named Hitler rose to power and slaughtered many innocents. Millions were lost. Even the colony war pales in comparison. Why, certainly. It's what I do. There was a time when huge monstrosities called dinosaurs ruled over Earth, long before humans existed. They were similar to some of the larger life forms you might see elsewhere in the settled systems. Their reign ended when I can never remember if it was a comet, an asteroid, or a meteor that hit the Earth. Whatever it was, it nearly wiped out most of the life at that time. Let me think of a good one. A long time ago, thousands of years, humans built a wall so large it spanned the northern length of one of Earth's largest empires, China. They called it the Great Wall of China, and it was meant to keep out invading hordes. If I recall correctly, it didn't always work as well as they had hoped. I'll have to look it up again. Memory's not what it once was. Of course, certainly. We have several items in our collection that we rotate in and out over time, but they all originate from the same place, Earth. We have everything from toys to antique technology to sports memorabilia. We even used to have an old Earth vehicle, but we had to sell it when we ran out of space for it. Most of our collection was donated by fellow Earth enthusiasts and historians who felt it belonged close to the homeland here in the Sol system. Thanks for visiting.
Hi there. Welcome to my little shop. Well, hello there, and welcome to my little shop. Are you visiting New Homestead for the first time? Oh, nice. You know, it's always such a pleasure to meet people from other worlds. Or just space. I don't judge. I'm Jay. I'm happy to help you find what you're looking to buy or take a look at whatever you want to sell. Trades of all kinds are welcome here. Or if you have any questions for me about the shop, the merchandise, or even just New Homestead in general, I'm happy to help you.
I guess so. Maybe I need to look up more about
We used to, but not anymore. Believe it or not, the New Homestead Tourism Board decided a while back to do away with souvenirs. We don't really have the resources or facilities to make them here ourselves, and it was decided that anything less than that would seem exploitive of our people and inauthentic. Only thing we have are these souvenir slates about the history of New Homestead. Tell you what, I've got an extra one here that another guest left behind a while back. You can have it. I love them. Most of us in New Homestead appreciate what tourism does for our economic livelihood, so we go out of our way to make guests feel welcome. Some are indifferent about it, while a few others, I won't name names, are downright resentful of all the tourists and would prefer to be left alone. But that being said, I believe our generally friendly demeanor is a large part of what drives people to keep coming back. Glad you asked. I'm looking for all sorts of things. Anything, really. Clothing, weapons, jewelry, even stuff they consider junk. You name it. We don't get a lot of off-world stock, so I offer to buy things from travelers. Anything they're willing to part with. Between you and me, people around here talk a lot about tradition and whatnot, but even they get curious about what other worlds have to offer. Sure thing. I'm also interested in buying if you have anything for sale. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You don't want to get hurt or sick around here. Dr. Lakota really doesn't care for tourists.
Boring assignment, but let's keep it moving.
I still can't believe people actually live like this. I was hoping you could tell me some more about this exchange.
Lots to learn at the United Colony's premier living history exhibit. If you need a guide, I'm your guy.
I'm an actual citizen. What we offer is something different. In our program, you'll be staying.
Why, hello there! I'm Bill Starsap of Starsap Tours. Let me tell you, this place is full of history and interesting facts. For instance, did you know that New Homestead was one of the first colonies established outside of Earth? It's been populated in some capacity for over 200 years.
Schedule a stay and go over some paperwork.
Sure. Well, there's plenty more where that came from if you're interested in taking one of my famous tours. So what do you say? I've got an opening. I could take you on a tour right now if you'd like. Definitely check out the Brown Horse Tavern. Good food, great atmosphere. Avoid spending too much time outdoors. It's freezing out there. Any more than that, and well, I'd be giving away the tour for free. Why would I want a tour of New Homestead, she says. Well, let me tell you, New Homestead is living history. These people are direct descendants of some of the first settlers to leave Earth. If you've ever wanted to know what that early colonial life was like, this is your chance to embark on a fun-filled exhibition unlike any other. None taken, I get it all the time. If you think it sounds made up, well, that's because it is. I come from an eccentric family. Back in the early days of space travel, generations ago, my ancestors were really into science fiction. They wanted a name that seemed like it fit into the stories they grew up with, so they changed their last name, and the Starsap family name was born. Used to be Bramblefoot before that. Their ancestors liked a different type of fiction. Excellent! You won't regret it! My tours are one of a kind! Now, there's just the matter of price. The going rate for a genuine Starsap tour is only 100 credits. Well, 100 credits is very reasonable, I think. Did I? I don't think it's so unreasonable to mention the price after the pitch. That's okay. This tour isn't for everyone, I know that, but my price is fair, and I think it's well worth the money. No one's forcing you to go on it. Hold on, I never said that was my final offer. I'm glad you understand the position I'm in here. Tell you what, I like you. This one's on the house, but if you enjoyed the tour, I'd really appreciate if you'd tell all your friends about me when it's done. So let's get this show on the road, eh? All right, so this is New Homestead's main concourse. This underground area didn't exist when the original outpost, Titan Astro Base, was finished in 2130. Follow me. We'll come back here by the end of the tour and talk about the museum collection. But first, let's go see where people live. Now remember, these people aren't actors. They actually live here, so try to be respectful of that. While the original inhabitants of the Titan Astrobase lived in pods like you saw up above, they transitioned down here when this section of the base was finished in 2144. Space is extremely limited, so you'll notice some overflow here, but more residences also exist on lower levels, which are inaccessible to tours. I'll stop at each of our destinations if you want to look around, or if you have any questions for me.
Thanks for taking the time to talk. I wanted to ask you about the artifact you found on Bactera. When you pulled it from the rock, held it in your hands for the first time, how did you feel? No, how did you... Oh my goodness. That must have been terrifying. When it comes to the artifacts, it never ceases to amaze me how the science, well, simply fails. If there is, the artifacts are doing a heck of a job hiding it. The artifacts are so different, so alien. And I'm certain one of them reached out and spoke to you. Quite the mystery. Agreed. Unfortunately, there's no way that I know of to reply. And believe me, I've been trying to gather data on the damn things for years. Not much, I'm afraid. All I have to show for my efforts are eyewitness accounts, scores of inconclusive metallurgical test results, and wild theories. Oh, no, not at all. There's so much going on there, I can't afford to divert all of our resources, but I have classified the artifacts as a priority project. Does that really surprise you? A universal mystery left unsolved for God knows how long? Oh, I've been dreaming about solving this puzzle from the beginning. I knew I picked the right person for the job. Look, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to talk, and for keeping an open mind. And I also wanted to say, well, I'm pleased we're on this journey together. It's the best decision I've made in quite a long time.
Some say New Homestead is a backwoods world. Maybe it is, but that doesn't really bother me. Oh, you don't really want to talk to me. I'm just a nobody from the crates. Besides, I'm not really good at talking to tourists about New Homestead. If you're really interested in our history, talk to Maurice. He's a lot better at that than I am. I feel like it sometimes. I don't have many friends, and I'm struggling to stay in my undergrad program. It feels like I'm never going to get out of here and make a name for myself. Anyway, if we're going to talk, maybe we should talk about something else. Well, I'm trying to finish up my undergrad schooling, actually. I want to be a physicist like my grandmother. Then, who knows what. But I also do some odd jobs here or there for money. Sometimes I help Jay out at his shop, and he gives me stuff in return. Sometimes I help Anya clean up at the Brown Horse when she's short-staffed. That sort of thing. It's not as bad as you'd think. I like talking to off-worlders, especially people my age. It gives me ideas for what I want to do when I'm done with school. Because, honestly, I'm not sure I want to stay here. It'll always be my home, but as soon as I can afford to, I'd love to explore my options. The crates are what we call the living quarters for the poor people, like me. They're made from old shipping containers. We have to make do with the space we have here. They're comfortable enough, I guess. And no one on Titan is well off to begin with, but you can tell that people look down on us, especially some of the tourists. Okay, well, no. Not the studies specifically. Like, I get good grades when I'm able to apply myself. But I'm poor. I just don't have the kind of money to be a full-time student and support myself. Even living in the cheap-ass crates. I keep having to take odd jobs just to put food on my plate. And when I do, my grades suffer. I just feel like I'll be stuck in a rut forever. What? Really? I don't know what to say. This is beyond kind of you. I mean, I don't even know you, but... Wow. Thank you.
I'm pleased that you realize the importance of a decent education. So long.
Hey, later.
Have any questions so far? The original Titan Astrobase had more habitation pods on the surface connected to some of the old structures you may have seen in the back. As the colony grew, the base was expanded underground, and those hab units were recycled into materials used down here. I'm not sure the exact count, but New Homestead is a fairly small colony. What you see is what you get for the most part, except for some other people who live in the private lower levels. Some, particularly security, and yours truly, even commute from other worlds. Sadly, it's difficult to get additional construction done inside these underground caverns. So for now, additional populations are housed in these stacks of old shipping crates. As you might expect, this is where some of the less wealthy can afford to live. It's not glamorous, but they are functional and cozy. Alrighty, we'll be taking the residential elevator to the farms area on the surface level. This way, please. Let's leave these good people alone for now. Go check out the farms. Follow me up the elevator.
Enjoy your visit here.
Yeah, I don't mind the tourists. They help the local economy.
New Homestead's farms are the beating heart of the colony. Without them, the original outpost would have shriveled and died. These pods are sealed and climate controlled, the perfect environment for growing the hydroponic
Lots of history
vegetation
here,
needed for
if you're into that
survival
sort of
in
thing.
the early days of the colony.
Sure would be nice to get off-world sometime. Off-worlders always ask how I can live here. I wonder how they can live anywhere.
If you need medical attention, see Dr. Lakota. But a word of warning.
Hello? I'm not really supposed to talk with tourists, but I kind of want to anyway. And I don't think my papa is paying attention. You're not going to tell him, are you? Oh, thank you! I promise it'll be fun. I like talking to tourists. I get to learn so much about everywhere else, and they get to learn about here. Now what should we talk about? I think it's pretty fun. And I get to be around my mama and my papa all day, so that's cool. They say we all have to work a little, because it takes all of us to make the community work. Just like on Earth a really, really, really long time ago. Someday, I think it'd be cool to see other places and do other things, but this is fine for now. My mama says it's because he thinks we'd up and leave if we found out about the rest of the worlds out there. But I keep telling him, I love it here, and I love him, and I would never leave him. He doesn't believe it. He says the kids almost always want to leave when they grow up. But not me. Nope. I just want to visit somewhere else. Maybe. Not really. There's some, though. Most are around my age. We all go to school in the same room. I don't know. I've never been to any other schools. We mostly learn about the history of the solar system and Earth and stuff like that until we get old enough to go on our learning vacation. That's when we get to leave to go to school somewhere else for a few years, or travel and visit other worlds, try out jobs and stuff. Oh, I can't wait. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
Ah, someone new. Are you a tourist, or have you just moved to New Homestead? Well, there's lots to learn. You can always feel free to try one of the historical tours, or ask the locals about life here. I'm fascinated by the other worlds in the settled systems. Do you mind if I ask you a question? Oh, wonderful. What's New Atlantis like? Oh my, that sounds incredible. Ever since I overheard one of the tourists speaking about it, I've always wanted to go. We hear about it, of course, but we rarely get much exposure to other worlds beyond the people who come from them to visit our little colony. I wonder if I can convince Nathaniel to go on a trip there with me and our daughter. Do you mind if I ask you another question? Thanks. I promise not to take too much of your time. Is the Freestar Collective as lawless as I've heard? I figured the stories weren't all true. How else would you expect people to live together if you can't trust in laws to keep everyone safe? Even in a small community like ours, we have to maintain law and order. Though, I understand it gets difficult to always protect that out in the vastness of space. I imagine it's the same in the Freestar Collective. Is it okay if I change the subject? Oh, thank you. Are there really planets full of plants, fresh air, and water? Really? I would think anything is better than what we have outside. I'd love to be able to leave the colony without worrying about putting on a suit. I've heard that people can go outside freely on those worlds. But perhaps some of you travelers just get used to it, having been all around the settled systems. You should learn not to take it for granted. Can I ask you something else? Oh, wonderful. Is space travel as exciting as it seems? I've heard stories about pirates and spaceship malfunctions and all sorts of terrible things. I've always wanted to try going into space, but I'm also worried about all those dangers. Maybe people here are right. The dangers here are few, and we know how to take care of them. Space is too unknown. Those are all the questions I have at the moment. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day for me.
No disrespect, but I'd appreciate if you let me and my family be. I overheard you speaking to my wife, Mara, filling her head with ideas about picking up and leaving home. You got anything to say for yourself? That's what I thought. Now I'd appreciate if you keep your nonsense to yourself. I don't expect you to understand why it's important our people stay here and keep our traditional way of life. Traditions like the way we tend this farm, strong family ties, early colonial life. We do it all with the bare minimum technologies to survive. Everything else is hard work done by humans. It's good for humanity's soul. People rely on technology too much. We need to remember how to perform the basics to survive in case we ever find ourselves without said technology. We need to remember where we came from, Earth, this system, lest we forget and repeat the same mistakes as before. We're one of the last colonies charged with that preservation. That's why it's important. It's not. Thank you for realizing that. I'm sure you didn't mean anything by it, so we're good. You have yourself a day.
Any questions about the farms? These days, it's a mix of what you find elsewhere in the galaxy, but in the olden days, it was all brought over from Earth. It was a lot of hardy root vegetables like potatoes, carrots, beets, and such, supplemented with corn, peas, green beans, soy, etc., which didn't always grow as well. Good question. It's largely the same, because this was the colony that pioneered the techniques you see elsewhere. But you'll notice that the farms here are smaller and staffed by humans, not robots. Things here are a little more old-fashioned compared to some of the large factory farms you'll find elsewhere in the settled systems. Oh, they are indeed. Colonists still cultivate plant-based food for their own consumption here in New Homestead. It's less vital to their survival these days, as they also import supplemental food from other colonies, including meats, dairy, and synthetics. However, most citizens here take pride in a New Homestead-grown, sustainable diet. Onward it is! We'll be stopping by the Brown Horse Tavern later in the tour, which uses many of these locally sourced ingredients in their cooking. But for now, it's just a short way to our next stop. Follow me! So, the old biolabs are just on the other side of this building, believe it or not. We'll step on through the hallway there. They're not in use anymore, but the colony has faithfully recreated them as a historical exhibit, true to the original purpose of the Titan Astrobase. Sadly, they're undergoing some light renovation. Otherwise, there'd be interactive activities for kids to learn about how they used to search for microbial life here.
To me, it's just how we live.
Pardon the dust, but I can still answer some questions about the old Titan Astrobase biolabs. Funny you should ask! Sadly, none. See, NASA funded the Titan Astrobase project because conditions seemed ripe for primordial life to form in Titan's methane pools. They tested many different sites, performed deep core ice drilling, and more, yet nothing turned up. Well, NASA defunded the xenobiology program in 2132, but a scientist by the name of Catherine Neely proposed research into advanced colony building on inhospitable worlds. So, by 2135, work began on what would ultimately set us all up to create habitats anywhere humans dared to explore. These very labs housed the computer systems used in that research. That and general storage for the colony. Lots of storage. Oh, I'm sorry. I completely forgot to mention that. That's what this place was originally called. When NASA divested its interest in the Astrobase and turned it over to the people back in 2185, they renamed it New Homestead and established it as a historical site. You got it! On to our next stop! Next, we'll be heading outside, so make sure to check those seals on your suit because it's a bit chilly out there. We're going out into the frozen wastes of Titan to see what powers this planet. Watch your step outside, by the way. The ice can be slippery if you're not careful. The goal is to keep people out of Dr. Lakota's infirmary. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yes. Powering New Homestead. As you might imagine, generating energy was a real challenge back in the day because the technology was much more crude then. But crude or not, it was that technology that sustained the old Astrobase. And it might surprise you to learn that the same technology is still working today. The interesting thing about this old colony is that it's mostly powered by clean, renewable energy. You'll see one of the methods used on the horizon up ahead. That's right, New Homestead's famous wind farm. This spot was chosen for the colony in part because of its constant winds. Turbines have been integral to the colony's function since its establishment as a cheap, mostly reliable source of electricity. So, let's talk about wind power, shall we? Mostly. I'm sure you've noticed the occasional brownouts. I guess these old machines have a habit of freezing up, what with all the ice out here. There's some methane on reserve for critical life support systems, but everything else here is otherwise powered by the units you see here. You're looking at a piece of history. Sure, wind power is used throughout the galaxy, but these people were able to make do with it for hundreds of years. It's impressive that was all they had back then, and still make it work to this day. You're right. Most surface wind on Titan isn't too terribly strong, but here, the altitude and other conditions are perfect for sustained wind power. Like many worlds with atmosphere, the higher you go, the windier it gets. You're the boss. Let's go. Moving right along, we're going to learn about Titan's great natural resources. Titan is rich with hydrocarbons like methane and ethane. Surely you saw huge pools of this stuff on your descent into New Homestead. I like to think they add to the natural beauty of this world. Though, of course, stay away from them because, like anything beautiful, they can be dangerous. Just like my last ex-wife's pet. She had this gorgeous, I don't know what you'd call it, creature. The guy that sold it to her couldn't tell her what it was or where it was from. I don't think it was even a legal sell, to be honest. The thing was very easy on the eyes. Feathers, all the colors of the rainbow. Nasty bite, though. Wound up in the hospital and almost lost my hand. Still not enough for her to get rid of the dang thing. Anyway, there's a reason she's my ex-wife. But enough about me. We were talking about methane and other resources, right? Hey, can you believe it? Back in the 20th century on Earth, they used to fight wars over natural resources like this and petroleum. They had this whole moon here basically made of hydrocarbons in their own backyard. They just couldn't get to it. Incredible how far we've come. New Homestead is home to one of the oldest and largest methane processing plants in the settled systems. Every year, UC engineers go through a painstaking, month-long maintenance process. That's how this place has remained operational as long as it has. I'm not going to take you too close to the machinery, liability and all, but I can still answer questions. Questions? Fire away! Exports mostly, since this world is so methane-rich and has the infrastructure for it, a lot of the UC's methane comes from Titan. Of course, new homesteaders use it themselves for everything from generating heat to turning it into breathable oxygen via modern science. Oh, no one's ever asked me that before. Something to do with methane-eating microbes, I believe? I honestly don't know. Sorry. It's not as if they shut down for a month. It's not shut down at all, actually. See, this place is built with redundant systems, so they can shut it down piece by piece and suffer only a reduction in throughput. During that time, the UC gets more of its resources from other places, allowing New Homestead to maintain what it needs. Okie dokie, artichokey. There will be time for more later anyway. So, this next stop is a bit of an interesting one. I only recently made it part of the tour. Fun fact, it's also the only natural landmark on the tour. What we're about to see is a glacial spire we affectionately call Ymir's Horn. This colus used to be named after a character in a popular fantasy novel, but it was changed a couple hundred years ago to avoid any potential litigation. Now, what's a colus, you might say? Colus derives from the Latin word for hill, and scientists only gave names to groups of hills on a planet's surface. So in reality, the term you hear more often is the plural, coles, with an E. You probably don't hear it very often where you're from, because it was usually a term reserved for unexplored planets, back when they didn't have the technology to describe what they were seeing firsthand. Because of that, the term is much more common in the Sol system, but you may still hear it occasionally in reference to uncharted worlds. This planet's full of them, though, and they like to preserve that history here. So here it is, Ymir's Horn. You're free to take a closer look if you like. I've heard this particular formation was caused by an ancient volcano. Something about steam and wind, then worn down over time. But I'm not 100% sure. According to ancient Norse mythology, Ymir was the first Jotun, a frost giant. In the legend, they were both male and female and gave birth to the progenitors of all giants from their armpits. Ymir even predated the Norse gods, who, as it turns out, killed Ymir to fashion the earth and all of humanity from the corpse. It's a fascinating story, and the horn here is a fitting tribute to it. Excellent! On to the next stop, then! So, we're gonna head back inside, through the methane processing plant. Try not to touch anything on your way. We want to make sure to respect Dr. Lakota's wishes to be safer around here. That brings me to another point. You'll notice the people around here have last names related to where their families originated from on Earth, as a way to remember the past. The museum curator, Maurice Leon, has more information about that if you're interested. You can find him inside the main concourse. Loves talking about it. You'll find most of the locals here are very friendly to tourists like yourself. Tourism is a major draw to this colony these days, and I respect that. Most of them are happy to talk at length about what they do here. Their rugged lifestyle is a point of pride for a lot of these folks. This area we're walking through is the nerve center of the plant, where technicians keep an eye on the operation. Since methane production is such an important part of the colony's livelihood, it's important that the techs notice any issues and react to them quickly. Anyway, we're headed into the ice mines. It's a natural spring where water bubbles up from deep below, but due to the cold, it keeps freezing as it reaches the surface. What else can I tell you about the ice mines? Not all. Some water is created as a byproduct of methane processing, but that's usually saved in the emergency reserves. Good question. I believe it has something to do with not wanting to contaminate the water with methane and other chemicals. The ice helps prevent impurities in the water. At least this is what I've been told. I wouldn't recommend it. First, it's an active work site. Second, it still needs to be filtered and checked for contaminants. But don't worry, we'll stop somewhere for refreshments before the tour is over. I'll be here if you need
Other tourists come to learn about the ice mines, huh? It's dangerous in the ice mines. I'd much rather answer your questions than have you going off to explore on your own. I'm surprised I still get this question. It's slippery, it's sharp, it can break, it can cave in. Those are just the obvious examples. Titan is also full of methane, which can sometimes be trapped under the ice. As you know, methane can explode under the right conditions. It can also asphyxiate you if you breathe in too much of it. Ah, so you can relate. It's good to talk with someone who understands the challenges of the job. Not everyone does. If I might ask, what do you mind? Ah, I see. I can respect that. We used to do more traditional mining like that here, but it made much more sense to do it off-world, since it takes a lot more effort for less gain. We mostly export methane and other natural gases instead. Anyway, I'm sure we could swap mining stories all day, but I really should be getting back to what I was doing soon. For drinking water. And we use some of it to produce this air you're breathing. We recycle a lot of what we use, but we still need a nice, steady supply of fresh water. Lucky for us, Titan provides. For one, New Homestead is not a wealthy colony. But we also pride ourselves on doing things the old ways. It's part of the living history, they say. We don't mind. We work hard here. It's very rewarding. Be careful out there.
What else can I tell you? Sounds good. Let's keep going then. We have just one more stop before we're done with the tour, and it just happens to be my favorite. This colony is home to the longest running establishment still in existence, the Brown Horse Tavern. The Brown Horse started as a simple mess hall for the scientists and workers when the underground was built, but it's been operated by the same family ever since. Now, what's a horse, you might say? They were a large four-legged animal on Earth, often used for transportation or manual labor. Long before space travel was even a dream for the folks of Earth, even before antique machines like automobiles were possible, horses could be found everywhere. You might have seen them in old movies or read about them somewhere. If not, I highly recommend looking into them sometime. They're beautiful animals. The tavern's original owner was infatuated with them, from what I understand, and named the place in their honor. The moniker, Brown Horse Tavern, is also a throwback to names of similar Earth restaurants hundreds of years before it was established.
Warm food, cold drinks. What else could you want?
This colony's a lot smaller than I thought it would be.
Welcome. I'm Anya. Is this your first time with us at the Brown Horse Tavern? Oh, well, thank you for joining us. You're in for a real treat. We've got an assortment of food and drinks, some of which follow homemade recipes that have been passed down over hundreds of years. So, what can I do for you? Let me show you what we have. You mean the Brown Horse? Well, it's only the longest continuous running restaurant since humans started settling outside of Earth. There's a lot of history within these walls, and some damn fine food and drink, if I say so myself. This place has been in my family for generations. My however many great-grandmother opened it when the first colony started on Titan. Back then, it was a simple mess hall that she chose to put a little extra love and flavor into. And now, it's the pride of New Homestead. Oh, hardly. The locals pretty much stay away from chunks, so whenever they don't feel like cooking themselves and want a fresh meal, they come to me. Only the tourists eat that junk, but don't tell that to my husband. He manages the chunks. I love him, but he's a bit of a fanatic about it. So long. Tell your friends about us.
That delicious smell is making me hungry. Can I answer anything about the brown horse? Easy. All the other ones fell to ruin when we abandoned Earth. There were technically older ones on Mars, but those have long since shuttered or been replaced. Ooh, that's a tough one. I honestly love everything Anya serves here. I'd be doing her a disservice to recommend one dish over another. You want the real answer? Order one of everything. Anya Seattle is the current owner of the Brown Horse. It's been in the Seattle family for generations. But Anya will be able to tell you more herself. Feel free to ask her. It doesn't feel right coming from me when she's standing right over there. Okay then. All right, we're headed to the last stop. Right back where we began. Feel free to check out the museum exhibit in the main concourse here. These displays are full of rare Earth trinkets salvaged from before humanity left, and Maurice is happy to talk about the collection. The museum's curator, Maurice, will be happy to talk to you if you want to know more. Well, that's that! I hope you enjoyed Starsap Tours as much as I enjoy giving them. You're welcome, and thank you for coming along. Remember to tell your friends all about it. Take care! Hope you enjoyed the tour. Have a good one.